So here's the list of numbers that we're going to be using to calculate the break even. And you see here that in break even we have fixed costs and we have variable costs. And we have contribution margin and break even point down here at the bottom. So what we're going to do is we're going to work over on this side first, and then we're going to fill in the data tables in a minute. So the first thing that we have to do then is add up all of our fixed costs. And so in order to do that, we're going to put in a formula, and the formula is going to be a sum. So we're going to type in sum, open the bracket, click up here and drag down to from B7 to B12, close the bracket, press enter, and we get the sum of these numbers. So we're going to do the same with this here. We're going to put in a sum formula, open the bracket, click and drag down to 18, row 18, close the bracket, press enter, and we get 21. So what 21 is the 21 is the variable cost per unit, which means that it's costing us $21 to make every unit. We're selling these units for $100 each. So we can quickly see that if it costs us $21 and we're selling them for $100, then if we were to calculate the difference would be our contribution margin, meaning this is how much we're contributing to profit. So let's put a small formula in here, and we'll see that if we take 100, so equals B4 subtract B19, we'll see that we get $79. So $79 contributed to our profit. Our break-even point is going to be calculated by how long is it going to take us to pay back these fixed costs. We can see here a fixed cost is $1,251,000. So if you're making $79 on every item, how many do you have to sell in order to cover off $1,251,000? So basically it's a division that we're going to be doing. So we take our equal sign and we say equals B13, and we're going to divide B13 by B21, and that will give us 15,835. So when we hit 15,835, we would have broken even, and so anything past this will give us a profit. So what we want to find out over here in the data table is what if some of these numbers change. So what if labor is not 15, what if it's 12, what if it's 13, what if it's 17? So we're going to use those numbers. And we can also say what if the insurance costs weren't $99,700? What if they're $90,000? Or what if they're $110,000? So in this space here, what we're going to see is the answers to all of these questions, and we are going to do that now. But the first thing we have to do is fill in this cell so that it's connected to B22 down here. So in order to do that, we just have to say equals B22, and that connects it here. And then we have to highlight the table, and when we highlight the table, which we're going to do now, we're going to the what if, find the data table, and the row input cell is going to be B12, and the column input cell is going to be B16, and we're going to say OK. And that is the answers to all the questions. So if our labor was $17 and our insurance was $90,000, then we would have to sell $16,121 in order to break even. If our insurance cost was $100,000 and our labor was say $14, we would have to sell $15,641. So instead of using insurance, which we did up here, what if we use the sales price? And so the sales price we know is $100 now, but what if it was $200? What if it was $175, $150, $125, and we changed our labor rates from $12 to $17? So more questions down here. So just as before, we start off and we say equal B22, and then we highlight the table and highlight the table and issue the command data table. The row input cell is B4 and the column input cell is B16, and we say OK, and here you see we get the answers to some more questions. So if you changed your selling price to say $175 and your labor went up to 16, you'd have to sell 8,176 in order to break even. So that gives us much more information. Using the data that we already have, we can produce answers to possible questions or questions that may be asked at any time. Okay, so let's have a look then at number 3, part 3 of this assignment. In part 3 you see that we're kind of back in familiar territory here. We've used the solver before, but in this example we're going to be doing it for hot spring spas, and let's have a look at that now. So here's our worksheet for part 3, and in the worksheet then we see that we have some numbers already filled in, and the ones that I've highlighted in yellow are ones that we're going to have to include in our formula, and they're very important to the overall formula. Okay, so we'll start this one off by going to our data ribbon and clicking on solver, and you see the first thing solver wants is some answers to some questions. So our objective here, they want us to set our objective, and our objective is going to be to maximize our total profit in D7. So we click on D7 and it shows up in the box here. We click on max to give us our max profit, and then we enter the by changing variable cells. And our variable cells are going to be the number of types of spas that we sell. One is called the Steamboat, one is called the Classic, and so what we do here is we fill in C4 to D4, and then we go down here and put in the constraints. Now the constraints are that we have to be less than or equal to what's available as far as parts go, because as we make these spas we make them out of parts, and then we can only make so many depending on the parts that we have available. What we don't know is how many we can make, and that's what's going to show up here in row 4. So our constraints are, and it's easier to point, so our constraints are going to be, we'll click on add a constraint, and our cell reference, which is where we'll click C15 and we'll drag down to C17, and that has to be less than or equal to and then our constraint. Again, we'll click on D15 and drag down to D17, and then we'll just say OK. So see, our constraint is now in this box here, and there's nothing else we have to change. All we have to do is click on solve, and solve comes back and gives us an answer, and we just say OK, and you see that we get 106 and 95. And down here you'll see that we didn't go over on labor, we didn't go over on piping, and we're actually under on the number of pumps. And we can go up here and we can see the individual amounts, and you can see how precise they are. It's not exactly 106, and over here it's not exactly 95, but because the numbers were rounded, we get 106 and 95. So part 3 is relatively short, and that's exactly what we have as far as completed assignment goes. So